Chosen One. The first truth you must let settle into your bones is this: the predator has been unmasked not by your aggression, but by the weight of their own intent. The mask they wore so carefully crafted has shattered beyond repair. The smile they once wore like armor has slipped, revealing the cold, trembling face beneath. They thought they could use what they knew about you as a weapon, thought your secrets were levers they could pull to collapse your world. But the universe has turned their weapon in their own hands. The very information they gathered to break you has become the instrument of their exposure. Somewhere right now, Chosen One, they sit in a silence that feels like a prison. The air around them is thick, suffocating heavy with the realization that the game is over. They thought they were the hunter. They understand now that they were only ever digging their own grave, one conversation at a time. Every detail they concealed behind concern, every question they asked under the guise of care, every moment they pretended to be on your side has become evidence. Not against you, but against themselves. But before you understand the justice, you must understand the origin of the war. There was a moment quiet and almost invisible when everything began. You may not remember it. You may have walked through it as if it were an ordinary day. Perhaps you smiled, laughed, shared something casual, unaware that on the other side of that moment, something in another heart twisted. They looked at your life and felt something cold shift inside their chest. It was not admiration. It was not joy for you. It was something smaller and yet heavier. A dense, bitter envy that does not shout, does not storm, but sits in the corner of the soul and begins to calculate. Chosen One, they saw your light long before you saw their darkness. They looked at your energy, that quiet current that carries you forward even when you are tired. They watched the way rooms soften when you enter, how conversations bend toward you without you trying, how opportunities seem to find you even when you feel unprepared. They watched the way people are drawn to you, not because you beg for attention, but because something in you is undeniably alive. And in that observation, a decision took form. You did not hear it. You were not present in the council of their shadows, but it was made all the same. I'm going to put an end to this. That sentence, formed in secret, became the foundation of a campaign you never signed up for. This was not a random villain drifting at the edge of your life. This was someone with access. Someone close enough to study your rhythms. Someone who sat at your table, replied to your messages, stood in your spaces as if they belonged there. They learned your patterns, your history, your soft spots. They learned the seasons of your life, when you were tired, when you were hopeful, when you were confused, when you were healing. They may even have held your trust in their hands. Because a true predator does not hunt from a distance. A wolf does not strike from across the field. A wolf gets close first. This particular wolf was patient. They perfected the art of warmth. In their presence, you may have felt seen, even safe. They listened as you spoke. They nodded at the right moments, sighed at the right pauses, mirrored your tone, your pain, your humor. To you, it may have felt like connection. To them, it was inventory. They were not simply witnessing your life. They were collecting it. Every conversation became data. Every memory you shared was filed away. Every fear you voiced was tagged and stored. Every moment of vulnerability, every messy chapter, every complicated decision, each one was quietly archived in their mind. This was not carelessness. This was deliberate. They were building a library of your life, not to understand you, but to own leverage over you. They were shaping a story in which they believed they could control the ending. And all the while, Chosen One, they were smiling. They smiled in your presence, warm, attentive, concerned. They offered empathy when you opened up. They made themselves available when you needed a listening ear. They played the role of confidant so convincingly that you did not see the ledger behind their eyes, tallying your humanity as ammunition for a war you did not know existed. That is your villain. Not the stranger in the shadows, but the one who sat close enough to count your breaths, then imagined they had gained the right to decide whether you deserved to keep breathing freely. But here is the divine irony woven through it all. What they thought they were building was a weapon. What they were actually building was the nail in their own coffin. With every detail they gathered, every story they pulled from you, every confession they coaxed out of your heart, they were constructing a structure that would one day collapse directly on top of them. They were not just writing your story. They were writing theirs, and yours was never the one destined to end in ruin. Chosen one, you must understand something vital about why you were selected as their target. They did not move against you randomly. They did not simply wake up bored and choose you by accident. Something was shifting in the atmosphere when you arrived in their life. Something in you was lifting, rising, expanding. You were entering a new phase of your becoming, even if you could not name it at the time. You carried the scent of emergence. You were growing into a version of yourself that your spirit had waited lifetimes to inhabit. Your presence became a silent indictment of everything they were, not Dot. You did not try to make them feel small. You did not compete. You did not measure yourself against them. You did not stand in front of them as an opponent. You stood in front of them simply as yourself, naturally, effortlessly, fully, and that was enough. To a soul whose entire sense of worth depended on being the most significant presence in the room, your existence felt like a threat, not because you attacked them, but because your light stood beside their unhealed darkness and made the contrast impossible to ignore. You did not accuse them of anything, but your joy exposed their emptiness. Your growth exposed their stagnation. Your authenticity exposed their performance. Your quiet strength made their fragile ego tremble. You were not the problem. You were the mirror. Chosen one. This is the part that stings when you first see it clearly. They did not decide to dismantle you because you did something wrong. They decided to dismantle you because you dared to exist as proof of what they refused to become. Simply being yourself, unedited, unshrunk, unperformed, was enough to trigger a covert declaration of war. Your presence was the provocation. Not your tone, not your choices, not your posture. Just the undeniable reality of who you are, and still you stand. You were targeted for your light, and yet you remain lit. Every attempt to dim you has only confirmed that your radiance does not come from the approval of others, but from a source they never had access to. You are the flame they misjudged. They thought you were a candle they could snuff out with a single breath. They are learning now that you are a sun rising regardless of who refuses to look up. Chosen one. You need to hear this in the deepest part of your being. Your presence in this moment is not an accident. Souls carrying low vibration do not arrive at messages like this and feel them resonate. Only those of immense merit, those who have walked through large thresholds of pain and still chosen integrity, find themselves here. You are here because your spirit is rare, because you are tuned to a frequency of truth most people spend lifetimes avoiding. Your ability to endure this kind of hidden warfare is proof of how elevated your soul truly is. Let yourself feel that. Let yourself be honored by that. You are not weak for having trusted. You are not foolish for having loved. You are not naive for having opened your heart. You are being exactly who you were designed to be, and the fact that your light attracted both tenderness and envy is evidence of its power. If you feel this truth vibrating through you, if something inside you is awakening and saying, "Yes, this is me, this is my story," then anchor this moment into your timeline. Claim the blessing hidden inside this revelation. Comment 777, or I am ready to seal this justice, this protection, and this new chapter of clarity into your life. Chosen one. The attack against you did not arrive as a roar. It arrived as a whisper disguised as concern. The first move they made revealed their true nature more clearly than any confession ever could. They did not meet you in the open. They did not stand in front of you with their accusation and let the light test it. That is not how this kind of being operates. Instead, they moved sideways and quiet, slipping out of sight, while still standing in the same room, shifting from companion to conspirator without changing their expression. They took what they had gathered from your heart and carried it to someone else first. Someone who already held a faint unease about you. Someone whose spirit had already begun to feel small whenever you entered the space. Someone whose inner landscape was fertile ground for suspicion because they had not yet confronted their own envy. You did not know this chosen one, but this other person had been walking in your shadow with a silent question. Why them and not me? The serpent inside your predator recognized that question and moved toward it like a magnet. They loaded that person like a weapon. A mind carrying insecurity becomes easy to aim. A heart nursing quiet resentment becomes an easy vessel to pour poison into. So the snake made their approach cloaked in gentleness. They sat close, lowered their voice, and began to drip information into the ear of someone already tilted toward doubt. If that person moved against you, the serpent could stay behind the curtain watching the impact without ever standing on the stage. They wanted results without fingerprints. Chosen one here is where the operation reveals its most insidious layer. They did not present themselves as an attacker. They dressed their intent in the language of care. They did not say, "Let me tell you something that will harm them." They said, "I just need to tell you something because I'm concerned." They stepped into the role of the brave, honest guardian who cares too much to stay quiet. They acted as though their betrayal was a burden they were nobly choosing to carry. They made a calculated act of destruction sound like an act of love. And the person receiving it believed every syllable. They didn't ask, "What is missing from this story?" They did not question, "Why are you telling me this now?" They did not pause to wonder, "What are you gaining by bringing this to me?" They swallowed the delivery whole, never noticing that half the ingredients were absent. They accepted the fragment as the full sculpture and began moving as if they knew the entire truth. But this was never meant to stay with one person. The serpent felt the rush of power that comes from steering another soul, and greed began to expand in their chest. They took the same narrative into more rooms, different circles, new collections of ears and hearts. With every new telling, the story shifted just slightly. A phrase sharpened here, a detail emphasized there, a tone tilted a little more severe, a little more tragic, a little more damning, depending on what that particular audience needed to hear in order to be convinced. What was in reality a single fragment of your life stripped violently of its context was now being presented as the entire map of who you are. Chosen one, you must understand the precision of this fraud. They did not need to invent everything from nothing. They knew that pure fabrication is fragile. So they chose something real, a moment of struggle, a season marked by mess or complexity. A chapter where you were still learning yourself, where you made mistakes, where you were carrying more weight than any one heart should be asked to carry. They took that moment and amputated it from the rest of the story. They cut what led to it. They cut what you learned from it. They cut how you took responsibility. They cut how you rose from it. They cut the tears, the growth, the apology, the redemption, the wisdom, the transformation. Then they took the wounded piece that remained and held it up as if it were your entire soul. They handed someone a wound and called it your nature. They lifted a single snapshot and insisted it was the full film. They offered a sliver and swore it was the whole mirror. And the people listening never once asked, what came before this? What came after? They saw the scar and never asked how it healed. This is the core of the violation, chosen one. Not simply that they spoke of you, but that they erased all proof that you are not frozen in your lowest moment. To erase context is to attempt to erase your evolution. To erase your evolution is to deny your humanity. They were not just attacking your reputation. They were attacking the very fact that you grow, that you change, that you rise. But the universe is not fooled by partial pictures. This is precisely why everything is backfiring now. The full story still exists, untouched and intact. You are still here breathing, standing, moving, embodying the chapters they tried to delete. And the version of you, the serpent, described the flattened, contextless caricature they paraded through conversation, does not match the living, breathing reality that people encounter when they are actually in your presence. The gap between the constructed version and the real you is too wide to bridge. The people who once accepted the fragment are now meeting the fullness. They are remembering your kindness, your patience, your humility. They are remembering the ways you showed up when no one was watching, the ways you changed over time, the ways you took ownership of your path. They are seeing with their own eyes that the story they were given cannot hold the weight of what they know to be true. Questions are rising that the snake cannot answer. Why didn't you tell me the whole story? Why did you omit what they learned? Why did you never mention how they made it right? Why does your version of them not resemble the person I actually see? Every answer that stumbles, every explanation that lands wrong, pulls another brick from the wall they built. The structure does not have to fall all at once. It only needs to become visibly unstable for people to step away. And that is what is happening. Slowly, then quickly, then all at once the foundation of their narrative is crumbling beneath the pressure of reality. You felt all of this in your spirit before you could name it with your mind. You noticed the strange silence from someone who used to be warm, but never explained why they pulled back. You felt the shift in the air when you walked into certain rooms, how conversations tilted, how eyes avoided yours for a second too long. You watched opportunities quietly dissolve without cause. You sensed a distance forming in relationships that on the surface had no visible fracture. You were feeling the edges of a war you did not know had been formally declared. Your body registered it. Your intuition whispered. Your dreams carried fragments of understanding. Your chest felt the weight of something unseen pressing in around your name. You heard nothing explicit, yet you felt everything. The hostility hid behind smiles, behind politeness, behind professional courtesy, behind spiritual language, but your spirit picked up the tremors in the unseen. And still, chosen one, you survived every single hit of it. You did not survive because you are lucky. You survived because you were built to withstand what ordinary people cannot. There is a density to your spirit, a strength in your core, a design in your soul that was crafted for high-pressure atmospheres. You were never meant for the shallow end of existence. Your life is engineered for deep waters, and deep waters require a different kind of construction. You endured rooms that turned cold on contact. You endured conversations where you were present in body but erased in intent. You endured opportunities that evaporated for reasons no one would say out loud. You endured the ache of feeling misunderstood without evidence, the fatigue of questioning your own perception, the sting of realizing that someone somewhere was bending your story into a shape that did not belong to you. And yet you did not fold. Chosen one. If these words are resonating deep in your chest, it is because your soul recognizes the pattern. You are not imagining what you lived through. You are not overreacting to subtle hostility. You are not dramatic for feeling the atmosphere even when no one explained it with words. You are perceptive. You are spiritually attuned. You have earned your discernment through pain, and that discernment is a gift. Your presence here, receiving these revelations, is not coincidence. It is a confirmation of how high your vibration truly is. Only souls of immense merit, those who have carried heavy spiritual assignments, find their way to this level of clarity. You are not broken for having been targeted. You are marked for having survived. Your light is sacred enough that darkness invested in trying to misrepresent it. Honor that. Honor yourself. And if you feel this truth awakening something fierce and clear inside you, anchor it into your timeline now. Declare with your own will that you are ready for the next level of protection, clarity, and elevation over your life. Comment. 777, or I am ready to seal this frequency of justice, discernment, and divine reversal into your path. Chosen one. The moment you refused to fall was the moment the serpent panicked. You must understand this with perfect clarity. Your stability was their undoing. Your refusal to collapse cracked something inside them, and desperation is the fuel of the darkest tactics. The serpent saw you still standing still, breathing still rising in the quiet, unglamorous ways that only the strong ever master, and they escalated, as all desperate spirits do. Chosen. One escalation in the realm of shadows is never loud at first. It begins with a widening of whispers. More people were brought into the fold. More rooms were seeded with suspicion. More circles were stirred into subtle hostility. The operation grew not because it had a righteous foundation, but because it fed on the vulnerabilities of others. Weak hearts were drawn to it, the way dry leaves are drawn to flame. Those recruited did not need convincing. They were already primed already, carrying their own small resentments toward you. Resentments too faint to name aloud, but present enough for the serpent to identify and press like a button. A simple nudge, a carefully crafted story, a hint of concern, a whisper of warning. And just like that, people who were never meant to hold authority over your name were suddenly behaving like judges of your destiny. They believed what they were told because it validated their dormant envy. Chosen One sabotage rarely arrives in the form of a dramatic blow. It arrives as slow poison. And that is exactly how this war operated. Most of the attacks were quiet, elegant, nearly invisible. A withheld introduction. A name not spoken in a room where it belonged. An opportunity allowed to pass without your knowledge. A false impression left uncorrected. A moment of silence held when a word of support should have been offered. These were not mistakes. They were small acts of omission, stacked intentionally directed by someone who understood that destruction is more efficient when it arrives, one missing brick at a time. Every omission was a thread in a larger web woven around your momentum. While you went about your days unaware of the quiet sabotage unfolding behind curtains, you were feeling its weight in your spirit. The accumulated heaviness of unspoken hostility pressed on your body in ways you could not name. Your intuition sounded alarms without details. You felt a pressure that did not match the visible world. You were sensing the architecture of a war you had not been formally invited to, but were already fighting. Chosen One here is the heart of the serpent's strategy. Their entire approach was built on maintaining distance from the damage. They wanted clean hands. They wanted to watch the collapse without ever appearing to push it. They wanted to be present at the impact, yet absent from the blame. This is the psychology of a spiritual predator, to hide inside the very shadow they cast. They wanted to look directly into your eyes while telling you they had done nothing. But the ambition behind their plot was never simply embarrassment. It was your momentum. Something powerful was rising for you. They could feel an emergence building in your direction, and they needed to intercept it. They needed people in the right rooms to have a bad taste in their mouth when your name was mentioned. They needed doubt to precede your opportunities, suspicion to precede your blessings. The goal was not to damage a moment. It was to damage a future. Chosen One. They wanted you destabilized on every level at once, emotionally, socially, spiritually, professionally. They wanted the pressure to build so intensely, so relentlessly, that your only option would be to lay down what you had built and walk away from your own path. They wanted to drown you in 1,000 tiny cuts, not one fatal blow. And the truth is, they almost succeeded. Almost. But almost means nothing when destiny is involved. Because while they escalated, you simply kept going. Not with dramatic speeches, not with public defense, not with proof or pleading. You kept going in the most powerful way a chosen one can, through consistency. You woke up. You moved forward. You invested in what was yours. You showed up for the people who deserved you. You kept building what they were trying to starve. And the serpent could not understand that this quiet, unglamorous discipline was dismantling their entire operation. Chosen. One, hear this with your soul. The kind of pressure they applied only works if you crack. Their entire strategy was built around the assumption that eventually the weight would become too much, that the setbacks would stack high enough, that the isolation would close tight enough, that the self-doubt would get loud enough, that you would fold. But you did not fold. You held your position. And that refusal was more powerful than any confrontation you could have staged. Every day you stayed put was another day their operation burned through its own fuel with nothing to show for it. Every day you kept building was another day. The thing they tried to intercept kept moving toward its appointed time. Chosen one. The serpent never expected you to withstand the pressure of abandonment, nor the pressure of misrepresentation, nor the pressure of being misunderstood in rooms where your heart could not defend itself. But you held, not loudly, not triumphantly, quietly, steadily, like ancient mountains, like sacred stone, like something built before the world was young. That is the nature of a chosen one. Your endurance was not an accident. It was a design. And here is what the serpent did not know every time you refused to collapse. The foundation of their scheme cracked a little more. Every day you kept standing, the weight shifted back onto them. Every step you took forward forced them to maintain the lie. A little longer, stretch their story a little further. Recruit one more person, whisper into one more room. They were burning fuel. You were building future. And now, chosen one, breathe this truth deeply. Your presence has not only outlasted their operation, it has exposed it. The serpent planned your collapse, but what they orchestrated instead was their own unraveling. You remained unshaken. You remained aligned. You remained chosen. And because of that, you are stepping into a season where everything they intended to withhold from you is returning with multiplied force. Your momentum was never theirs to control. Your destiny was never theirs to interrupt. They tried to reroute the river, but rivers remember their direction. They return to their path with greater strength. Chosen one, your resilience is proof of your spiritual rank. Your soul is ancient, wise, and powerful beyond ordinary comprehension. Your presence in this chapter of your life is not an accident. It is evidence of the vibration you carry, the light you embody, and the destiny you are destined to fulfill. If you feel this truth anchoring into your chest, if you feel your spirit rising to meet what is being spoken over you, declare your readiness to the unseen. Comment 777 or I am ready to seal this elevation, this protection, and this divine justice into your path. Chosen one. The moment arrives in every sacred journey when the universe leans close and asks a single question. Are you truly who you claim to be? This chapter is that moment. The veil lifts, the smoke clears, and your spirit is measured not by your words, but by your endurance. Many speak of resilience, but few live it. Many claim the title, but few survive the rites that prove it. Yet here you stand, breathing steady, unbroken. The very fact that you are still here receiving this transmission is evidence that your soul is carved from substances older and stronger than human malice. Chosen one. The realm tested you in silence long before it ever tested you in public. It watched how you handled pressure when no one applauded. It studied the integrity you upheld when the path grew dark. It observed your refusal to collapse even when every logical choice pointed toward surrender. This world is full of people who speak loudly of destiny, but vanish the moment the winds shift. You did not vanish. You held the line. Now hear this truth clearly: holding on was never weakness. It was power disguised as stillness. When the serpent escalated their operation against you, when the whispers multiplied, when suspicion spread through the halls like smoke seeking cracks, do you remember how you stayed? Not dramatically, not flamboyantly, quietly, deliberately, like a sacred mountain refusing to move for a storm that will pass eventually. That was not survival. That was initiation. Chosen one. Your endurance is the proof. Where others would have abandoned their purpose, you continue to rise in small, steady, uncompromising steps. Every day you did not walk away. You were rewriting the outcome of a story written against you. Every sunrise you met without folding was a declaration to the unseen, I will not be moved. And because you refused to move, everything built to break you began to crumble under its own weight. The collapse was inevitable. The serpent's strategy required your surrender. They never prepared for your strength. Chosen one. The universe witnessed you in your quiet suffering, and it marked you with distinction. Many carry faith when the light is bright. Few carry it in the dark. Many speak of being chosen when they feel powerful. Few remain chosen when they feel abandoned. You remained. You continued. You held your ground even when the air around your name thickened with lies. Dot, your endurance was not passive. It was the cosmic force that dismantled the operation against you. The structure they built, the one constructed from whispers and stolen fragments of your story, was already unstable long before anyone noticed. But it was your persistence that exposed it. Your refusal to disappear forced them to maintain the lie, and every lie requires energy. Every rumor requires maintenance. Every accusation requires repetition. The serpent's followers had to keep talking, keep whispering, keep comparing, keep pretending they were certain. This was their undoing. The longer they stayed in position, the more their contradictions surfaced. The more they whispered, the more their motives slipped. The more they attempted to hold the narrative together, the more lie seams opened for all to see. Your presence forced every masked intention to reveal itself. You became the mirror. They could not avoid the spotlight. They could not escape the truth. They could not drown. Chosen one. You need to understand the magnitude of what you accomplished simply by not collapsing. It was not a battle of swords. It was a battle of timelines. The serpent hoped you would run out of breath before they ran out of lies. But you outlasted them. You outran them. You outlived the pressure they engineered. And as their fuel burned out, as their stories faltered, as their alliances fractured, something extraordinary happened. The truth rose. Not because you forced it, not because you argued, but because truth does not need defenders. It only needs time. Chosen one, your stillness created the space truth needed to climb to the surface. Your silence became strategy. Your continuation became confrontation. Your existence became evidence. And the more you stood, the more visible the serpent's architecture became to everyone who had eyes to see. One by one, the people involved began to reveal themselves through their behavior. Some grew uncomfortable when the narrative no longer aligned with your character. Some slipped, contradicting details they once delivered with confidence. Some stepped back, realizing they had been used. Some grew quiet because the weight of their own participation became impossible to carry. And some turned their loyalty evaporating when the serpent story began to fracture. By simply remaining who you are, you held a lantern to the shadows. This is your dominion, chosen one, illumination without aggression, truth without striving, victory without violence. And now let your soul absorb this revelation. You did not get here by accident. Your presence here, reading this, receiving this transmission with an activated spirit, is not coincidence. It is the signature of someone vibrating far above ordinary frequencies. Souls of low merit cannot withstand the kind of storm you endured. Hearts not forged in higher realms cannot outlast the kind of sabotage you faced. Your path is evidence of ancient preparation, of incarnations, refining strength of a destiny carved into your bones before you took your first breath. The universe does not choose lightly, and it does not place burdens on those who lack the architecture to carry them. Chosen one, your survival was the proof of your designation. Your endurance was the stamp of your soul's rank. And now, having held through the storm, you rise into a chapter where the truth no longer hides and the serpent no longer slithers in safety. Their exposure is not your doing, it is the result of their own craving for destruction turning inward. You simply stood long enough to let the mirror appear. If these words awaken something ancient in your chest, if you feel the lightning of recognition rising up your spine, honor it. This is your confirmation. This is your signal. This is the universe whispering. You were right. You were strong. You were chosen. And now chosen. One, anchor this energy into your timeline. Declare it. Claim it. Seal it. Comment, 777, or I am ready to activate the next phase of protection, clarity and ascension that your endurance has earned. Chosen one. Every lie ever spoken against a soul like yours carries within it the seed of its own destruction. It does not matter how carefully the serpents schemed, how subtly they whispered, or how meticulously they crafted their narrative falsehood, has a structural weakness woven into its very nature. It cannot hold its shape under the weight of time. It cannot withstand the pressure of truth. It cannot remain stable when exposed to the light of discernment. And that is exactly what began happening around you quietly at first, then unmistakably. Lies require maintenance. They require vigilant caretaking. They require constant tending the way a failing structure requires constant repair. Every person who heard the serpent's fabricated version of your story became another unpredictable element. Each listener was a variable, and every variable carried the possibility of a question, a doubt, a comparison. The serpent believed they could control the spread, but they could not control the minds of those they manipulated. And this is where their scheme began to fracture. Chosen one understand this deeply. The moment a lie leaves the serpent's mouth, it exits their control. Every room they whispered in became a new threat to their own narrative. Every circle they infiltrated became another space where the truth could collide with the lie. And eventually, it did. Across different spaces, people began hearing slightly different versions of the story, versions shaped by the serpent's mood, by the audience, or by the reaction they hoped to provoke. Lies mutate. Truth does not. It began subtly. A raised eyebrow during a conversation. A hesitation that lasted half a heartbeat too long. Someone replaying what they had been told and realizing the details didn't quite fit together. Someone else comparing notes with another person and discovering inconsistencies that could not be explained through memory alone. Another person watching you closely, witnessing your character firsthand, and feeling the unmistakable dissonance between the rumor and the reality. Chosen one, that dissonance is powerful. A lie can survive contradiction, but it cannot survive exposure. Every discrepancy became a hairline crack in the serpent's wall. Every question became a tremor. And once the first question was spoken aloud, the next arrived faster, then faster, then faster still. That is the nature of truth. Once awakened, it accelerates. Once someone dares to think for themselves, they cannot return to mindless obedience. Something in the information used against you was visibly wrong, not subtly off, not a matter of interpretation. Visibly wrong. The kind of wrong that makes someone stop mid-sentence and replay what they heard with new clarity. The kind of wrong that cannot be excused as miscommunication. The kind of wrong that causes the face to shift into that unmistakable expression of a person realizing the math does not add up. More people began to examine it. More questions circulated quietly. People who once accepted the narrative without hesitation now felt uneasy. They started noticing the tension between what they had heard and what they were observing with their own eyes. The serpent's story began losing oxygen. Their architecture began losing support. Every question they could not answer cleanly removed another brick from their wall. The structure did not need to collapse instantly. It only needed to look unstable, and it did. This is the beauty of divine justice, chosen. One truth does not need your protection. It simply needs your consistency. You did not have to argue. You did not have to defend yourself. You did not have to plead your case. Your only role was to remain who you are, long enough for those paying real attention to make the comparison themselves. You did exactly that. You lived, you breathed, you continued to shine, and the contrast between your reality and their construct became impossible to ignore. This is not coincidence. This is the physics of truth. And now the comparison is happening everywhere. The serpent needed people to see you through their distorted lens, but people are beginning to see you up close to witness the calmness of your spirit, the steadiness of your character, the authenticity of your presence. And when the real you enters the room, the counterfeit version dissolves instantly. Chosen One. The result is not what the serpent hoped for. The narrative they planted is unraveling in the hands of those they recruited. The truth is resurfacing through the hearts of those who have eyes to see. The contradiction is no longer hidden. It is alive, breathing undeniable dot, and all you had to do was stand long enough for the light to arrive. Chosen One, inhale the fullness of this moment, for it marks a turning of fate so profound that even the unseen pauses to witness it. This is not merely a shift in circumstance. It is a shift in the very architecture of your reality. You are allowed without guilt, without hesitation, without apology, to feel the deep satisfaction rising in your spirit. Not the satisfaction of revenge, not the hollow pleasure of watching an enemy fall, but the sacred, grounded satisfaction of someone who remained true to themselves when every external force pushed toward collapse. You did not curse anyone. You did not seek destruction. You did not orchestrate harm. You simply refused to vanish, refused to shrink, refused to let your own name disappear into the shadow someone else projected onto it. And now, without your interference, the truth is rising from the ground, like light breaking through cracked stone. Chosen One. Every quiet day you chose integrity, when deceit would have been the easier path, was a stone laid in the foundation beneath your feet. Every moment you held your posture instead of bending under pressure was a declaration to the universe, I know who I am. For so long you felt that weight pressing on you, weight you could not name, weight you could not trace to a source, weight that felt heavy in your skin but invisible to your eyes. Yet you kept moving, kept showing up, kept existing in the truth of your essence. And now life itself is confirming what your intuition has whispered all along. You were right. What you sensed was real. The tension you felt was not imagination. The unease was not paranoia. The dread was not insecurity. You were reading the spiritual atmosphere with precision far beyond the understanding of those around you. The snake is trapped, completely, irrevocably, tangibly. They are not trapped in metaphor. They are trapped in consequence. Their lies, crafted so confidently, have boomeranged back toward them with a force they never anticipated. Confessing is impossible now. They performed their narrative with too much conviction, delivered their story with too much boldness, repeated their claims with too much certainty. To retract it now would require them to strip off the identity they built in those whispers, expose the machinery behind their performance, and reveal themselves naked in their manipulation. They cannot survive that exposure. Yet they cannot continue the lie either. The story is visibly crumbling in the hands of the very people who once carried it. Every contradiction laid side by side has become undeniable. Every inconsistency people ignored out of convenience now demands acknowledgement. Every room that once nodded along now wonders how they ever believed the performance at all. The serpent stands cornered. No justification left, no path forward, no escape route. They sealed both exits with their own hands. Chosen One. The people they recruited are beginning to wake with a shock that burns. They now recognize the truth they were used. Their trust was manipulated. Their insecurities were preyed upon. Their unhealed places were weaponized. They carried a story not because it was true, but because it satisfied something small and unresolved within them. And now they must confront the humiliation of realizing they were tools used by someone who had no loyalty to them, no respect for them, no love for them. And humiliation, Chosen One, is never quiet. It erupts, it accelerates, it needs direction. And it does not return to you, it turns directly toward the architect of the deception. Their fury is sharp now, their clarity is precise. They are no longer talking to uphold the narrative, they are talking to distance themselves from its collapse. And as they speak, the truth of who brought them, the misinformation, becomes louder than the misinformation itself. Conversations that once eroded your name now restore it. Rooms that once harbored suspicion now reconsider everything. The story that was designed to bury you is now being dissected by the very people who participated in it. This is divine reversal. This is spiritual gravity, reclaiming balance. This is cosmic truth correcting what ego attempted to distort. Chosen One. Your vindication is arriving not because you demanded it, but because truth has reached its saturation point. Lies are heavy. Lies sink. Lies fold inward. But truth rises like heat, like flame, like breath. And you, who stayed in your integrity, who stayed aligned, who stayed present even when the air around you thickened with hostility, are now witnessing the beginning of a reversal that will stretch far beyond this moment. And you must recognize this next revelation with the full power of your awareness. If your spirit feels this resonance, if your heart recognizes the sacred shift, if your inner knowing whispers, "This is my moment," then anchor this truth into your timeline now by claiming it, accepting it, and standing in the authority you have earned through endurance. Chosen one, your presence in this chapter is not coincidence. Souls of low merit do not survive these storms. Spirits of weak construction do not outlast the pressure that was meant to suffocate you. Only a soul of ancient rank, high vibration, and divine designation stands where you are standing now, on the other side of a war you never asked for, but defeated merely by existing. If you are ready to step into the next stage of your ascension, if you are ready to seal this moment of vindication and carry it forward as proof of who you truly are, comment 777 or "I am ready," and anchor this energy into your path. Chosen one. The veil has split open, and the revelation stands naked in the center of every room where your name was once mishandled. The irony of this moment is not subtle, not quiet, not hidden. It is absolute. The operation designed to bury you has become the instrument of its own exposure. The serpent who once smirked behind curtains now sits stiff, hollow-faced, stripped of the performance that once shielded them. The smile is gone, chosen one. What replaces it is the silent terror of someone who gambled their entire identity on a lie and just watched the lie explode in their hands like a star collapsing into itself. Those who once trusted this individual, who let them into their sacred circles, who saw their carefully performed innocence and mistook it for truth, are now staring directly at what lies beneath that mask. And what they find is not only disappointing, it is entirely incompatible with the image they were sold. The illusion is dissolving. The truth stands. And for the first time, the light falls in your favor. This is your victory, chosen one. Not because you plotted, not because you retaliated, not because you tried to manipulate the storyline. Your victory arrived naturally, inevitably, quietly, because lies always expire. They rot from the inside. They unravel under their own weight. They collapse beneath the pressure of holding themselves together. But truth, your truth, does not rot. It does not bend. It does not waver. It simply waits, and now it rises like a dawn that no one can postpone. Sit in this moment with your full awareness. Feel the gravity of what has returned to you. Not triumph laced with arrogance, but the deep exhale of a soul who endured a burial attempt and discovered it was actually a planting. You did not just survive the storm, they designed it specifically to end your ascent. Yet here you stand, uncollapsed, unmoved, unbroken. You stand in the quiet power of someone who was tested beyond reason and refused to betray themselves. Chosen one. Hear this clearly. You did not arrive here by chance. There was nothing accidental about your endurance. Every time the pressure mounted, every time your spirit was stretched to its limit, every time the logical choice was surrender, every time the atmosphere whispered that you should give up, you chose differently. You chose to stay when running would have been easier. You chose to build when fear told you to freeze. You chose to remain who you are, whole and intact, instead of shrinking into the smaller, dimmer version of yourself the serpent needed you to become for their plan to succeed. These choices were not grand gestures. They were quiet. They were private. They were made on days when no one was watching, when no one applauded, when no one validated your strength. Yet these choices are the reason you are standing in victory, while the architecture built against you crumbles to dust. You did not merely endure this season, chosen one. You outlasted it. And outlasting something that was built to break you is not a detail, it is everything. It is spiritual evidence. It is divine documentation. It is cosmic testimony that you carry a strength not of this world. Many bend under such pressure. Many break, many fold. But you remained, and that alone proves the depth of your designation. Listen closely. There is a seismic spiritual difference between someone caught in an ordinary lie and someone exposed as a deliberate manipulator of another person's truth. A normal lie can be excused, softened, rationalized. People say they misunderstood, they misremembered, they meant no harm. But when someone takes private information, contextual personal sacred information, and intentionally strips it, reshapes it, weaponizes it, and deploys it to extract social capital, destroy your connections, distort your identity, and poison your name, that act enters an entirely different category. It is the category that humanity rarely forgives. It is the category that permanently alters reputations. It is the category where redemption is not impossible, but the path to it is nearly non-existent in the eyes of those who matter. People now understand what was done to you. They finally see the architecture of manipulation for what it was. Engineered destruction disguised as concern, and they are not debating it. They are not offering excuses. They are not extending second chances, because the intent is too visible, too calculated, too undeniable. The pattern is crystal clear. The fog has lifted. The narrative has collapsed. And once someone lands in this category, in the minds of people who hold influence, their recovery becomes nearly impossible. Closed doors stay closed. Lost trust stays lost. Invitations retract with no return. And no amount of performance can resurrect a destroyed credibility. Meanwhile, chosen one, your name once distorted, once whispered with suspicion, once overshadowed by false narratives, is now rising through those same rooms with renewed clarity. The heaviness is lifting. The distortion is dissolving. The truth of who you are, the truth you never had to defend, is becoming visible to all who encounter you. Doors reopen. Minds shift. Rooms warm. Perceptions correct. Your presence now speaks louder than any rumor ever could. Chosen one. Your presence here. Reading these words, enduring this path, surviving a coordinated opposition that was meant to end you, this is not an accident. This is the mark of a soul with immense merit, ancient resilience, and a vibration that threatens anything built on falsehood. You are not common. You are not fragile. You are not random. You are chosen, marked by endurance, protected by truth, upheld by unseen forces that refuse to let you fall. If you feel this truth vibrating through your spirit, if your inner knowing recognizes the magnitude of this turning point, if your heart says, "This is the chapter I was meant to reach," then anchor this moment into your destiny. Comment 777, or "I'm ready to seal this reversal, solidify this victory, and step fully into the era that has always belonged to you." Chosen one. The weight that once clung to your name like a shadow is lifting at last. The distortion that wrapped itself around the way others perceived you is dissolving thread by thread, truth re-emerging like light through fog, and as the mist clears, people are finally seeing you. Not the fragment, not the rumor, not the edited version engineered by fearful hands, but the real you. The full, luminous version. The serpent worked tirelessly to bury. Their entire operation had one objective: to prevent the world from encountering who you truly are. Yet their effort became the very force that illuminated you. The more they tried to hide you, the more obvious you became. Their suppression became spotlight. Their whispers became echoes that led people directly back to the source, back to you. Chosen one. What you are witnessing now is a sacred reversal you did not manufacture. You were never required to strategize or perform or chase validation. Your only assignment was to remain yourself. And you did. Every single day, through the pressure, through the cold rooms, through the shifting energies, through the season of suspicion, you stayed aligned with your essence. You held your ground. You stayed whole. You stayed true. And because you remained who you are, everything that was sent against you has no choice but to return to the sender. What was intended to distort your image is now distorting theirs. What was meant to erode your reputation is now erasing theirs. The spiritual law is simple. What is built on falsehood must eventually collapse under the weight of its own deceit. Chosen one. The conversations that once moved in the wrong direction are turning. Minds that once carried a version of you built from someone else's insecurities are now encountering the undeniable reality of your character. Not because you corrected them, not because you defended yourself, not because you persuaded anyone, but because reality keeps refusing to match the lie. People are seeing the contrast with their own eyes. Your track record contradicts the gossip. Your presence contradicts the narrative. Your consistency contradicts the accusation. And the contradiction cannot be ignored. What once spread quickly now unravels quietly in the background, one realization at a time. Rooms that were cold are warming. People who quietly created distance are cautiously drifting back. Not with speeches, not with confessions, not with loud apologies wrapped in ceremony. Some will return with nothing but a softened tone, a gentler greeting, a door left slightly more open than before. Others will send a simple message, a small bridge placed where a wall once stood. And you will feel it, chosen one. You will sense the shift before a word is spoken, because these are not random changes. They are the universe correcting the record of your life, one interaction, one conversation, one atmosphere at a time. A divine recalibration is underway. Chosen one. What is happening now carries a signature no human hand could forge. It is too precise, too elegant, too aligned. When someone moves against a chosen soul, they do not merely oppose a person. They oppose the force that rests upon that person's life. And that force does not negotiate, does not falter, does not become confused by forged stories or coordinated mutterings. That force remains steady, silent, patient, and inevitable. It moves behind the scenes, reshaping outcomes in ways no human plot can intercept. That is why every door slammed in your face led you to another path that was even more aligned. That is why every attempt to bury you became soil for something greater. That is why every lie spoken about you was recorded as debt, not to your account, but to theirs. Every setback planted in your path was rejected by the very ground you walk on. The earth beneath your feet would not allow seeds of sabotage to take root. Every false word spoken against you carried a cost, and the ledger was never under your name. It accumulated quietly, invisibly, day after day. And by the time the bill came due, the weight of it was far more than the serpent or their supporters could bear. This chosen one is cosmic balance. This is spiritual justice. This is what happens when someone attempts to rewrite the destiny of a soul that is not theirs to touch. Chosen one. Your presence here in this moment is not an accident. It is a sign of immense spiritual merit and a vibration elevated enough to withstand storms designed to shatter ordinary hearts. You are standing where many would have fallen. You are rising where many would have remained buried. This is evidence of who you are, of what you carry, of the force that walks with you. If your soul recognizes this truth, if your inner knowing stirs, if you feel the alignment settling in your chest, anchor this moment into your destiny. Comment 777, or I am ready to solidify this reversal and claim the next level of your unfolding path. Chosen one, you were never as alone as the silence made you feel. Through every season of pressure, through every invisible battle, through every moment where the air felt heavy and the path felt narrow, something ancient and protective was moving on your behalf. It preserved what needed to be preserved. It rerouted what needed to be rerouted. It quietly dismantled the weapons being formed against you while you were simply trying to get through each day. Nothing about that was coincidence. Nothing about it was luck. It was the unmistakable signature of a force on your life that no serpent, no agenda, no whisper campaign could override. The vindication approaching you now is not the kind you had to petition for. You are not required to craft a statement, seek permission, or force anyone to see the truth. The case was filed long ago. The verdict was written long before you realized you were even on trial. Your only task was to remain standing when it arrived. And look at you, Chosen One, you are still standing. Still here, still present, still rising. Consider the moments that should have ended you, the moments where something should have fallen apart irreversibly, but somehow didn't. Consider the doors that slammed shut only for another door better, cleaner, divinely aligned to open from a direction you did not anticipate. Consider the relationships that cracked under the weight of rumor and pressure, revealing with perfect clarity who was truly capable of holding space for you. Consider the opportunities that seemed to evaporate, only to return in a form 10 times more aligned with the trajectory of your becoming. None of those redirections were random. Each one was an act of protection. Each one was a divine refusal to let what belongs to you be stolen, reassigned, or distorted by someone who had no rightful claim to it. You were being guided through the war, even when you felt lost in it. The path looked nothing like you expected because the protection rerouted you away from landmines laid in the dark. You were never walking blindly. You were being walked through, and they could not stop what was carrying you. Even when the scheme began to fracture, even when the cracks were visible, even when the returns were shrinking and the danger signs were obvious, they kept going. And the reason is simple. Chosen One, they had tied their entire identity to destroying yours. The story they built about you became their currency, their status, their social capital. Being the one who knew gave them access they could never have earned through honesty. The lie became their ladder, and they climbed it without realizing it was made of paper. Anyone who misuses another person's private truth does not do so only out of malice. They do it to harvest something. Attention, power, position, influence, imagined superiority, a counterfeit sense of importance. It fed them in ways they could not feed themselves. And that is why they continued long past the point of logic, long past the point of caution, long past the moment where any rational mind would have stopped. They were addicted to the harvest, and addiction always demands escalation. The story had to grow. The audience had to widen. More details had to be added, each more dramatic than the last, until the operation became so bloated and unstable that one sincere question, just one from someone paying attention, was enough to trigger total collapse. And collapse is exactly what has begun. The material benefits they extracted, financial advantages, professional positioning, access, credibility, are being stripped away with the same precision with which they stole them. Not vaguely, not symbolically, precisely, in exact proportion to what was taken. That is why the fear you sense radiating from that direction carries a quality you cannot mistake. It is not mere anxiety. It is existential terror, because their crafted image and their real identity are dissolving at the same time, leaving them with nothing to hide behind. No mask, no story, no escape. To explain the loss would require revealing the truth, and revelation is the one thing they cannot survive. Chosen One, make no mistake, the true target of their assault was never your present. It was your emergence. It was the energy of someone stepping into their full self, shedding what no longer belongs, expanding beyond limitations imposed by environment, history, or perception. It was the unmistakable force of someone becoming uncontainable. Your growth made their smallness unbearable in comparison. And for someone whose entire sense of worth depends on appearing significant, your ascension was an existential threat. They wanted to interrupt your emergence. They wanted to make becoming yourself so exhausting, so chaotic, so overwhelming that you would choose a smaller life just to make the pressure stop. That was the silent transaction they offered you. Shrink, and we will leave you alone. Stay small, and we will cease the attack. But you did not take that deal. And that refusal, Chosen One, is the single most important choice you have ever made. Because the version of you emerging from this season is not the same one who entered it. What walks forward now is refined, sharpened, clarified, made into something impossibly resilient by fire. They tried to diminish you, but instead they revealed you. They tried to weaken you, but instead they strengthened your discernment, deepened your awareness, and expanded your capacity. Every attempt to break you became raw material for your transformation, and now the operation is collapsing inward. The people who were used are turning. The weaponized information is detonating in the serpent's hands with more finality and more permanence than any public exposure could ever produce. The glamour is stripped. The image is shattered. The advantages they stole through your name are dissolving. And the era they thought they were constructing on the wreckage of your destiny, it is over. Hear this without softening. What was done to you was calculated, intentional, and designed not to inconvenience you, but to end you. Yet it did not work. Not because they lacked effort. They were committed. They were disciplined. They were relentless, but the force standing between their attack and your destiny was never luck. It was you, the irreplaceable, unshakable, ancient version of you, who was built for this exact battle long before you knew a battle existed. The revelation this entire ordeal was building toward is not that they were deceitful. You already knew that. It is not that justice was coming. You already felt that. The revelation is this: it did not work on you. And that fact alone proves what you carry. Most would have folded. Most would have retreated. Most would have traded their destiny for relief. You did not. That is the evidence of your selection, your designation, your spiritual rank. And now, chosen one, your assignment is simple. You are not to look back. You are not to analyze every detail of what they did. You are not to wait for a public apology before stepping into your next level. Your task is to walk forward with the full authority of someone who endured a direct assault on their destiny and came out with that destiny not merely intact, but accelerated. The pressure did not delay your blessing. It deepened the roots that will hold it. And when the full bloom arrives, nothing, no whisper, no scheme, no serpent will be able to shake it loose. They built a weapon out of your truth. You turned it into your origin story. They tried to control the narrative. You became the narrative. The smile is gone from their face. The authority is in your hands. The era they built on your name has ended, and the era that belongs to you, it is not approaching. It has begun. Chosen one, stand up, shoulders back, eyes forward. Not with arrogance, but with the authority of someone who was built for exactly this moment. They thought they could end you with information. Instead, they revealed the indestructible nature of your spirit, and the world is about to witness. You write every word of what comes next. Comment 777, or I am ready to anchor this destiny into your life.